This is a transmission or channeling from Ashtar on September 23rd, 2019. The coming event, your mission, and the victory over shadow races. This transmission is channeled through Neva, Gabriel RL, and translated by me from Portuguese. Greetings, family. It's good to be here one more time. This is an opportune time to talk about this subject that I want to explain today, and I am happy with this opportunity for direct transmission. I need to say that this will be a long message, and I recommend, in case your minds start to get tired, read 2 or 3 times. Normally, you don't feel tired reading our messages because they are always charged with crystalline energies. If you feel the need for a break, heed it. Either way, keep your hearts open and minds relaxed for reading and listening. Taking advantage even before starting the main topics of my message, I need to say that now our ships are even closer and radiating much love because you are also more receptive to them. Not just this love, but the whole package that comes with it, as clear instructions about your soul plan and the most efficient tools to achieve your objectives. Your consciousness is really changing and beginning to access much of what was hidden in you. In fact, your receiving antennas are becoming more powerful, and the expansion and resuming of your original consciousness is only just beginning. I say only because there is so much more coming as you return to your states of original consciousness. It is the beginning of a great return to the original starting point. The beginning of a deeper reminder of who you are, which is really very beyond even galactic identities. The beginning of a merger with everything. Although we have been bringing you messages throughout the ages about your origins, your deep agreements and deliveries in seed contracts, these messages are just brushstrokes of an even broader package, for only you decide for yourself the correct time to access information beyond our messages. And you are coming to this point. Your work is great. The way you have agreed to participate in the Earth experience and your courage to this day echoes through this universe and beyond. You have been on Earth for a long time, paving the way for so many other races who desired, like you, to experience this dimension. When they saw your courage, it inspired them, and they also decided to dive into similar experiences. Know that you pioneered many things in this universe and decided to completely lose the awareness and identity of who you really are, and for later, very later, to rescue this consciousness and identity in the darkness present at the time when you arrived. And even throughout the incarnational ages in dense and complex environments for the most challenging missions and learnings, you have thus demonstrated that you became prepared for the great development and learning that would unfold throughout of the billions of years of this experience. How many lives have you had? How long have you been incarnating on Earth? This is the main topic of my message today. I would like, first of all, for you to pause this reading so that I can continue. I will give you a minute to breathe deeply as I radiate you with my presence, bringing the energy of Source. Some of you have access to some data on how many lives you have had on the Earth. The incarnations themselves know, dear ones, that there are many, many incarnations. Most of you have been incarnating on Earth since your creation billions of years ago on your linear count. There are many calculations made with quantum tools that give approximate margins. Sometimes you need that amount of life and experience absorbed in those ages. Do not forget that you are multidimensional beings, and yet you are in more density compared to your original subtlety, where this multidimensionality is apparently overwhelmed. It is still multidimensional, and you may be in more than one place at the same time. I would say in more than one life at a time. This information cannot be too much for you. Of course, you already know that, or rather, you are already aware of it. It is the moment you can say, "It is very clear. I always felt that." Billions of years ago, when the earth was being prepared, the Elohim of form gave you a share of collaboration in creating this reality by your intentions and wishes. Angelic and galactic beings also collaborated in this creation. Many plans were made, many ideas, many possibilities. Races, especially that of the Pleiadians and the Syrians, also actively collaborated in giving their genetic portions to the development of bodies that in the future would be inhabited by the high cosmic consciousness that would be one of, if not the greatest experience in the galaxy, that would surely have a great reverberating effect all over the cosmos. The meddling. I must also say that in the midst of all this cosmic preparation for the event that would be this experience, other races that were not directly allowed to participate of building this reality were intrigued by what would be happening in this sector of the galaxy. These beings also wanted to participate, however, not by following a high protocol. They wanted to follow their own personal agenda and in many cases completely opposed to development and expansion and could not enter it directly. No, until they were called and they knew how to wait. They were patient, determinedly patient, until the vibratory conditions of those high consciousnesses were compatible with their intrusions. They waited until those consciousnesses that would participate more actively in the experiment mingled with the density of what such an experience would be, and also called them to participate in the game. This, too, of course, was foreseen and would not go unnoticed by the Creator Supreme. They remained surrounding the entire crystalline barrier that protected the construction of the experience. For billions of years, they have been waiting and trying to infiltrate races, especially Pleiadians and Syrians, intending to induce certain inappropriate modifications. And to some extent, they got a seed planted, an indirect, inappropriate reverberation. They could not directly enter the experience, but could try to influence from outside those who had direct access to it. Although they did not directly enter the experiment, as has been said, they planted a seed in the development of ideal DNA. But that would take them into, it would inevitably pull them into the experience. And they didn't want it that way. Not that way. They wanted to enter the experience, but not to actively experience it, as it was too much. They just wanted to control it. Inevitably, they were dragged in, and many are also today on Earth trying to return to their original state. Some, for ages, have kept trying to cause problems in the development of experience as a retaliation for being trapped inside it. They couldn't tear the veil, for only love can do it, and they aren't and weren't tuned to this vibration. For a long time, they caused many problems with their unsuccessful attempts to leave. The callings by their kindred were not heard either, for many fled this universe when they realized what was to happen and did not want to be trapped in the experience. So throughout the ages, their hearts, at least most of them, have been entirely softened, and they are also returning to Source. Keep in mind that here I am referring to many races that have in some ways kept you in difficulties, because those same races, when they realized that they were also trapped in the experience, attempted retaliation, tried to change the experience by making it even harder. All within one big movement that in the end all, or at least the vast majority, they would evolve in consciousness. Finally, at this point, when I say prison, I by no means mean that the earth is one. I speak only that your linear minds can understand my explanations in a clear way. Transmigration of souls. There were some special stages before the definite dive that would make you go out or forget completely with a rebirth in the lower dimensions. And you would literally bump in the dark trying to find the way back. During this preparation period, when in close contact with the source, you were instructed clearly as to what the challenges would be and surrendered to the process that would be increasingly intense. While the earth was being prepared, many of you were collaborating very much with the preparation of this creation, as you also developed works at other points of origin on the planets where you lived, breathing the purest air of love and peace. And believe me, some of you, while working on the creation of the earth, collaborating with the Elohim, did not imagine that you would be called upon to participate so actively in the experience, thus having to give up a love and peace-filled homelands to experience what would somehow tear you out of these sublimated states. But deep down, such an experience would bring even greater expansion. It would bring a great deal of learning. When the physicality of the earth was in its final stages of preparation, when only some adjustments were missing, the definite calls echoed throughout the universe. At first, the native souls of the very heart of Earth, Gaia, began their breathing and also prepared for the experiments. Souls of other systems, by vibrational force, began their shifts and adjustments to frequencies of lower dimensions. These souls could no longer expand or evolve in their homelands. As these systems had already reached high vibration, these souls had to step back to continue, and the earth was a place that could be done. Other souls, as I mentioned earlier, many of you would be called to bring your light to collaborate in the process as a whole. Let it be clear here that I do not wish to do soul separation or division. I just want you to understand how soul development and transmigrations took place for this experience. Consider basically 3 soul groups. Number 1, those native to Terra, Gaia, initiators of their experience on Terra, Gaia itself, planting the seeds of light, which would be the beacons lit for other races to come merge with the experience. They are those who would bring within themselves Gaia's love and share the transmission with the coming races. Number 2, those who by force of vibration had to migrate from their homelands because they were not following the vibrational elevation of their environment, thus needing to restart in an environment compatible and thus regain momentum, assisting the natives of Gaia with their extraplanetary experiences. An understandable phase throughout the universe of experiences. Number 3, those who came to bring more light and consciousness in response to a call of Gaia to help lift all matter and energy and collective of all souls. Souls that somehow had an influence on the creation of the earth and were now called to participate in the experience while being on the inside. They would be taking the opportunity to merge with the other groups. Souls were also present, giving their share of light and consciousness for the expansion of everybody. Know that you who are reading or listening to this message of mine may well fit into one of the 3 soul groups. Your hearts will say it. There is no separation. The experience is for everyone, and everyone has chosen by mutual agreement. The phases I have mentioned are just to facilitate your understanding of soul groups. All groups may have had and had their experiences merged. You who now read this message may be a native soul of Gaia who left for a while to have other experiences across the galaxy and then to return, as well as you may be from the group of souls that came to start over here to finish what had not been accomplished on another planet, or you may be a soul from the third group who also came to help anchor the light and more consciousness. In any case, the three groups are closely linked with a common focus: reintegrate Earth Gaia in the galactic community, completely purified from so many experiences and attempts of its destruction. A fact which, as I have said several times, will not occur. The Earth will not be destroyed by nuclear war, meteor, or anything. The beginning of the descent. There was still some work being done to harmonize the Earth's atmosphere, balancing oxygen and preparing the entire atmosphere, as well as the bodies that would be used by you who were preparing in one layer before, in the astral, for the incarnations themselves into physicality. This period lasted a long time until the final adjustment, so that the first bodies completely adjusted to the planet's atmosphere, allowing for one breath, pleasant and harmonious, that properly sustained biological life. Natives of Gaia and those coming from other stars went through 3 specific phases when they began to incarnate. Before citing the 3 phases of the descent, I need to cite phase 0. This is without a galactic body, without a galactic personality or clothing. You are only consciousness. For this experience on Earth, you went through this quick reset. When most of them left their homes of origin in other stars, they quickly stripped off their galactic identities and returned to phase 0, absorbed much light and strength at source, assumed their galactic garments again, then, as quoted in the next phase 1. This reset was necessary to give them an extra boost to the experience because of the difficulty involved. Phase 0 happened very quickly, as in a matter of seconds they went to source and returned. I could just say that you did a meditation and reconnected with the source. You absorbed presence and then opened your eyes for the course of the day. Here some might say, oh, but if we are back to phase 0, and if the goal of experience is to return to this phase, so why don't we stay in it anymore? Oh, because there was so much luggage to be rescued, be reviewed, accessed, lived. There was a whole story to be rewritten, written, felt, expanded, and it couldn't happen without the round trip within the given time. Consider it as if you were attending college in another country, studying, learning, and expanding, and you needed some family reinforcement. You went to your house, absorbed that energy, and returned to pursue your studies. Phase 1. Migration from the consciousness mentioned in phase 0 to this phase begins. In this one, you are still fully aware of your high spiritual expressions without any energetic condensation of the earth, or plasma currents, or astral bodies, as you call it. Here you are again after the reset, assuming the galactic personality: Sirian, Pleiadian, Arcturian, Capellan, Orion, Centurion Alpha, Andromedan, for example. You have stepped out of phase 0 state and have quickly assumed your galactic personality or identity again. In phase 1, you are still fully aware and already know the challenges that you will experience on Earth. You are connected with yourselves and are fully aware of your spiritual or galactic identities and its connections to Source. You know where you came from and why you are on Gaia, Terra. You know that in the next descent you will remember nothing more. You are in the first layer of Earth of the Terran experience. Phase 2. Incarnations begin not yet in physicality, but a pre-incarnation. It is in the astral realm of the Earth, which I call plasmic incarnation or astraic incarnation in the astral plane. At that time, the Earth's astral or plasmic plane was very similar to what is the third Earth's density today. There was only greater subtlety. To better understand, it is as if this time the astral or plasmic Earth plane were like the Earth is now at that density, and the physicality itself is even denser and heavier. So by this time, when you are entering this second phase, you are starting to forget the entire package previously had in phase 0 and phase 1. Here in phase 2, you are already in deep descent. In this phase, you incarnate and disincarnate faster in your astral or plasmic bodies, and we're not aware on the other side, which in this case would be phase 1 or 0, as it naturally happens on Earth. When you disincarnate, most of you already wake up on the other side, the spiritual side, knowing that there is a spiritual side. At the time mentioned, at this stage, you were disembodied and already quickly reincarnated into another body. These bodies were adults. At this stage, you already entered the adult body, did not pass by the phase of the child and adolescence, and built so that you were already adapting to the new phase to come, phase 3, the incarnation itself in physicality. In the future, these phases would adjust. I will explain more below. Here in phase 2, you can also consider it an incarnation, for you had a glimpse of challenges that you already as they already received the strong and intense density energies with their respective emotions and conflicts. You were already beginning to know and experience duality. However, at this stage of incarnation, when you disincarnated and quickly entered in another body, you did not remember the other life. You already had layers of forgetfulness. Phase 3. This is the embodiment itself in physicality, already passing normally by the phase of the child, adolescence, and reaching the adult phase. It is much denser, being 7 times denser in the earlier period than incarnations in phase 2. At the time, the ready-bodied bodies went through constant adjustments to their DNAs that were, in many cases, energetically painful adjustments for all who inhabited them. They were very dense bodies if compared to all other bodies they had ever experienced, not to mention the extremely oppressive energy atmosphere, unmatched by the subtle vibrations from the worlds they came from, and even from the astral or plasmic zones of the earth. The incarnation processes at this stage were slower because adjustments were being made to each group of souls descending into this phase for the betterment of the continuous experience. Meanwhile, other higher soul groups in the early stages of the experience began their descents from phase 0 to third. It was a steady rise and fall in an elliptical movement of soul descent and rise. With this, the vibration of the experience increased, and throughout the ages, the whole movement. As this rising and falling of souls takes place, an energetic ellipse is formed by this movement, and in the center of the ellipse, which is the heart of Gaia, the core energy expands considerably and gradually reaches the layers of consciousness of the phases 3 to 0, from the heart of the planet to the surface. The energy of the entire upper energy field of phase 1 and 0 projects from the cosmos, while there is also a projection of the most subtle layers of the earth, the heart of Gaia, towards the surface of the planet, resulting in an energetic compression of the experience. The energy coming from above, from the cosmos, meets the energy coming from below the layers, subtlest of the earth, heart of Gaia, both crashing into the surface of the earth, causing the phenomenon compression and rupture. Then a great explosion of light unfolds on the physical surface of the planet, which will completely dissolve the veil, promoting accelerated movement of expansion and reconnection in the consciousnesses of all beings present in Gaia. This whole phase of intense elliptical activity is underway right now, close to a great apex or tipping point. This explosion will be felt in all hearts. It will not be something to be seen, but felt so intensely that some will cry of excitement even without knowing exactly why. Then, taken by a sense of indescribable love, spiritual joy, and peace like never before. At this point, the physicality of the earth will enter into a rapid fusion between planes and separations. Vibrational plans will be discontinued quickly. Needless to say, there will still be those resistant to that. But no problem. Most of humanity will be ready to deal with them lovingly. And let me say more. Quote, the bell has already started ringing. End quote. That is what you were doing here. As you become aware of your true galactic or cosmic or ascended identity, you speed up this process and deconstruct the game. Going back in time. Going back in time through all these events, from the thousands of ages that went on, many others that are similar to you, that were like special messengers for pivotal moments, descended into your midst, as many entered more and more in the game, and it deepened more into oblivion and pain. These beings came down, and as part of the deal would remember much more quickly who they were, just to help us remember who they were too. They would also sacrifice themselves. Many gave their lives for this experience, for its loving ending. Many have arrived at key moments that have forever transformed the history of the earth. They were the helping hand you were waiting for when you said before the big descent. But, quote, but if we get lost so deeply that we can't get much done, we can't get this done, how are we going to return? And you heard from us, quote, flags will be sent through the ages. You will always be pulled back. Always. We will never leave you, end quote. So many of these came and incarnated amongst you. Abraham was one of them. He came with the mission to intensify the light on the planet and give a great new sign. Anyway, many came down. Moses, Muhammad, Siddhartha Gautama, Krishna, so many others. The one you knew as Jesus began the deconstruction phase of phase 2, as it was because until this period, shortly before him, there were pre-incarnations in the astral or plasma dimensions. Upon his arrival, he entered the second phase, occupied an astral or plasma body there, and spent 2,000 of its linear years at this stage preparing for the descent to phase 3 into physicality, which was the hardest, densest, most challenging phase. While in this incarnation, in phase 2, Jesus began to deconstruct all mechanisms previously built to maintain this phase, as they were no longer needed. In this period before Jesus arrives, before incarnating into physicality in phase 3, all they went through phase 2 as deep preparation. A few years incarnating in that environment for the definite descent into physicality, into phase 3. At that time, when the incarnates of phase 3 disincarnated, they did not return to phase 2. They were in a kind of vacuum, which was not in phase 2 or phase 1. There was simply no proper stopping point and breath. This was also foreseen in the plan. It was part of the game. In this vacuum, the higher self was rapidly beginning to redirect reincarnation into physicality, phase 3, collecting the energies generated in the previous incarnation and mapping from that the new entry into this phase. Thus, the incarnations were faster and without much pause. Consciousness, as soon as it left the body in phase 3, could even skip over reincarnation into phase 2, which is the astral realm, or phase 1, which is the galactic consciousness. There were few souls who, just for special reasons, returned to incarnate in phase 2, the astral realm, and didn't even access phase 1, galactic consciousness. Only very few, and only in special cases. The normal or common way went phase by phase, as previously described. With the arrival of Jesus, all of that changed. He deconstructed phase 2, the astral or plasma realm stage. During the 2,000 years that he was incarnated in this phase, preparing for physicality to phase 3, he created spiritual temples for soul restorations, powerful crystalline chambers, spiritual hospitals, or the so-called transitional houses. Environments known today to you, such as heaven, for example. Environments to receive souls when they leave their physicality. Preparation environments for these souls so that they can re-enter the physicality and follow soul plans. Here, souls were no longer in a vacuum. He, Jesus, reprogrammed it so that they could have a place to rest and schedule re-entry into phase 3 or physicality, once again, reincarnation. Then, at this point, when souls left their physicality and reached the astral or plasma plane, phase 2, this one was already lighter, much lighter, completely modified and subtle, making it possible, immediately when entering it, to access many packages of their galactic identities. So from this moment on, when you left the physical plan, you entered this astral plane already lighter, accessing with partial and sometimes complete memories of your galactic identity. Even if they did not rise completely, a fact that would lead them to phase 1 consciousness, you already felt great relief, and it was a new impetus for re-entry into phase 3, the physicality. That was a great balm for everyone. Everything was prepared by him, Jesus, even before his incarnation in phase 3. After all this was done, and having placed angels in the 4 corners of the earth to ensure that his, quote, buildings were maintained, he began his descent into phase 3, taking with him a huge group of souls also prepared for the great mission. and to give the signal that would forever change the fate of the earth, a fact that would ensure that you successfully completed the entire journey, which is true teamwork. He himself, Jesus, even today says this when they try to boast about his mission. Most councils he goes to that I, Ashtar, am present, and I could hear, he says, quote, I was a human and still am. I just gave my share of help throughout the process, but they who stay there do more than me. I kiss their feet for their courage and determination. I went to take a flag, that of love, and this, the sign that would keep alive the hope of remembering deeply who they really are, and they have sustained it ever since. So it is not me who deserves the applause. End quote. When he incarnated in physicality, there was a howling of the negative forces on the planet, who definitely saw that nothing else could prevent the conclusion to a loving experience. After that, several other Gaia signals were fired throughout the cosmos. There was then an avalanche of beings from various other systems making themselves available to also help in the experience. The dark forces tried at all costs to prevent the elliptical force from continuing, also firing signals across the galaxy for unauthorized races to somehow help to keep the experience going, but with more pain, perpetuated forever. For all time was endless without the conclusion of planned love. Amid all this spiritual battle, astral environments were also built for our fleets, the Ashtar Command, around Earth to contain certain more disconnected souls who wanted to cause more problems. As these conflicts became desperate on the part of those most disconnected and those that desired to deepen the darkness, more angels began to incarnate, and beings of thousands of stars of this galaxy and beyond, causing a dramatic energetic acceleration of the considerably increasing awareness, and then beginning the process of the Matrix's deepest break from phase 3. And here you are. You had until about the end of the 1980s to sustain an energy that would prevent drastic and traumatic changes in physicality, and were very successful in this assignment. They did not have to be traumatic. You prevented a nuclear destruction and heavenly bodies from being attracted to the vibrational force for destruction of the planet. You had until 2012 to secure the sustenance of another light energy that would ensure that more help would come, and it happened. More indigos, crystals, diamonds, and rainbows began to incarnate en masse. And you had until the middle of this present year, 2019, to sustain another energy that would ensure our approach and most direct contact with you all the fastest possible route. And here we are. You guys were brilliant. You are brilliant. Let's go home. The return home. So, dear souls of this wonderful experience, you are coming home, returning to the point of origin, returning with special gifts or knowledge or understanding which will serve for all endless ages. I know how hard it was, exhausting, terrifying for most. I know how many times you wanted to give up, and even if you did, you would be honored with praise. I know every time you wondered if it would take too long. How many times did you wonder why it couldn't be less painful? And if there could be more support? I heard all your questions and still hear. But what matters most now is that the homecoming has begun, and you are in joy of this return, even if there are still some flashes of pain, the pain of cosmic oblivion. pain of seemingly being abandoned, forgotten in a dark, lonely environment, and being devastated. I know how hard that was. But remember, of all volunteers, we will choose only the most capable among the most capable, the strongest among the strongest. It was a difficult experience, but only beings like you could. And so it was. You are now deeply connected, more aware, and knowing that all of this was worth it. That's what you went for. That was the mission. That was what you incarnated for. For your inner brightness to shine in the midst of such density and from within the transformation to occur. Now, on this elliptical trip back, you have been dragging everyone with you on the trail of light that has expanded. Those who come into contact with you and today are instantly dragged into that light. You most often don't have to do anything. Just be who you are in the glow of your light. You may notice that you can look into each other's eyes and many souls become one. They may stare into your eyes deeply, showing a clear sign that they are open to allowing themselves this loving fusion. If they look away, they feel insecure in facing the light itself through your eyes, because facing your own light entails the need also to face your shadows reflected in the light of your gaze. And once again, your loving energy will lead you to reflection. Your energy or power will be the heads-up sign that says the ship has arrived. It's time to return home. And even if they try to deny it, they will not resist this call. At least most will not resist because they came with you and they will want to come back with you guys. Of course, the very few who don't want to start their return trips now will be benefited by the trail of light that you have left, and this will be the bright path that they will follow for their return. And that won't be long either, as they are also finishing their experiences. While most of you are practically finished, there is the joy of knowing that the ship is already ready, and the trip back begins, passing through the ages in her multidimensionality, leaving a trail of intense light in this wonderful return of elliptical trainer of experience. Many of you hope our ships can land in your fields, make many exhibits in your skies, and then be rescued, taken up, and shipped out. We want you to know that this return is much deeper than that, and simply to come in on a ship and leaving would be, quote, bland. You wouldn't do that anyway. Understand this return is not to be taken literally as someone leaving a city and arriving at another, but a return to a state of consciousness that really doesn't matter the environment they are in. You will be home. A state of ascension consciousness where it will not matter if you will be in a hot desert or in a comfortably cooled and cozy environment. Your return home is not going to a specific place. It is being in you, in your fullness, love, and peace. Yes, you will return to your galactic points of origin because that was also the intention. But it happens when your inner light is turned on in such a way that you could bring this galactic home closer to you, right in the environment you're in. When you can see that it is not a specific place that makes you ascended, but a simple state of consciousness. And this is what you are reaching for. This all happened when you start incorporating your galactic identities in this dimension. When the identity of who you really are begins to be accessed in this physical dimension that you are in now, you will have a big download of the whole cosmic package of its history, and its light would expand further, dissolving the veil in pieces, destroying the matrix from the inside out. At this point, when that started to happen, you would start the big trip back, and this process has already begun. And much more intensely, especially on the crossing of the great marker of 2012. And here you are in the enthusiasm of the return. And throughout this process, they began to experience, thanks to their expanded states of consciousness, the transformations of ascension, the transformation of their carbon-based biological bodies to new crystalline-based bodies until they completely reach bodies of pure luminous structure, dissolving the physicality in the light of this transformation and integrating your consciousness, enlightened to the physical, becoming one. Know, dear ones, you are ascended beings retaking this consciousness. You are light retaking this consciousness. You are already divine retaking this consciousness. You are galactic beings retaking this consciousness. Nothing more can be said at this point. It is what it is. How many lives did you have? Finally, dear ones, after all you have been through from the very beginning when everything was absolutely one and you were torn away from Source, it caused confusion and pain and created the unbridled search to stay in the experience so that she, or Gaia, had her love purpose fulfilled, and at the same time the intense need for completion of the journey home and a reconnection with Source that would end the suffocating yearning affecting you for ages. But you remained relentlessly determined. No matter how dark your immersion was, you knew that the light of your hearts would guide you. Oh, I am so proud. In the midst of all this game, you were still creative, experts in your areas, path dials, lighthouses, healers. You continued to be who you really are without the memory of it. Somehow you kept this memory, even if unconscious, of who you really are, and this has always been present in many lives for the ages and ages of the earth. And how many were there? Dear ones, you had between 44 and 1,144 lives on this planet, between phase 2, the astral, and phase 3, the physicality. Oh, do you think this is too much? Do not. You wanted more. The most recent entrants, those who came to the experience more recently, have among 1 and 8 lives. Yes, there are beings that have just begun their first lives here on Earth. Isn't it not fantastic? I know, there are a lot of calculations in their heads now, but this is not the time for that. Just feel in your heart the truths of these statements. You know. You who programmed everything. We only assist. Let me tell you more. Today, at least 7 billion of the souls of the earth have at least 15 incarnations since Jesus Christ. Oh, don't hold on to these calculations. Your linear minds will not be able at the moment to understand the profundity of it all. Not that you have no intellect for it. I just want you to feel it in your heart. The whole body of beings that is actively connected to this experience today, between those embodied in the physicality and the astral zones of the planet, added to those who are on board the ships waiting to incarnate and somehow interact with the experience, both astral and physical, or even descending in their galactic garb, there are about 89 billion souls. And I'm not counting the souls comprising the fleet personnel, which will not incarnate directly on the surface, that are here to watch and support those 89 billion that are to be incarnated. Some will find much, others not so much. But I don't care about that either. It's just numbers. For thousands of years, there has not been this kind of revisement in incarnations. They were almost always the same beings incarnating in physicality for ages, assuming various roles at various times in various incarnations. Now, a big redistribution will happen. Many of those 89 billion will start to descend, while souls that incarnated for ages will start to stay here on the other side, except for some key souls that will keep traveling between realms constantly. This is a subject for another message. And before you ask, will the 89 billion souls going down weigh the planet down? Obviously, they will not descend all at once. Remember, this will take some time. Nor will they incarnate several lives in a row, as you did. Beloved, I am very happy with the opportunity to give you a little more of your story. My deep gratitude once again to you, dear Neva, for your availability. My hug to you, to everyone, as always. I would also like this message of mine to be narrated by many voices. Narrate it. Share it on your social networks. Put the vibration of your voices in this message, or record for yourselves to listen in your particular environment. Again, reinforcing my hug and continued support, know that I am with you for ages, listening to your every thought and always believing in your powers. No one has ever taken or will take away from me the belief in your strength. Finally, I would like my dear Neva, Gabriel RL, to provide you with links from other messages that can somehow complement this message of mine to help them understand further down all that was or is in this experience. Now you travel back home, and I will be in the elevator. And so it is. Blessings, your brother, Ashtar. In closing, I have provided, in the description below the video, the written transmission with the links to Neva's website in Portuguese, which can be translated by page with Google Translate. I have also found that this transmission contains very high packets of consciousness that will help you ascend further. Please read it and listen to it many times. Thank you.